but you do still have to manage the people. And so one of the big things that you need to do that is good communication. So what kind of communication channels are some of your favorites when dealing with project management?
Well, I mean, there's nothing like being in the room with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, it's the dreaded meeting, but, or even in the midst of the project is walking around and checking out how things are going. Like, for example, maybe there's a weekly, it depends on the type of project and what you're doing and the team size. So like if you're a really large team, maybe you just have the subject matter experts, or it could be everyone, depends, goes into a weekly project meeting that is a certain duration. Or if you're on a smaller team, maybe you have a weekly stand-up. So there you're doing it every day, but with fewer number of people. So, I mean, those are, the main forms of communication. Although, and then apart from that, I tend to prefer asynchronous communication, meaning like things like emails or things I don't have to check. Meaning there's this whole concept of being in flow. And if you're going to want to get some project done through programming, through software development, you're going to need significant amounts of time, uninterrupted time, to get that done.
Yep.
So having too many meetings or too many instances of someone bothering you for a synchronous communication session, be it on Slack or whatever, or chat or whatever, then that's going to bog down the project, delay things.
Right. And you bring up a good point too, that the communication you have to be careful about allowing the communication channels to be interruptions for you, because doing development takes a lot of brain power and focus and stuff. And every time you have to get out of that to do something else and then come back into it, you're kind of losing some ground on your thought process. And so it ends up taking longer. So you do have to be really careful. You want it to be easy to communicate, but you don't want it to be easy to interrupt. And that's a really hard thing to balance. So, like I use Slack or Microsoft Teams, mostly Slack, but I've used Microsoft Teams, which is kind of the same concept anyway. And Campfire, there's all kinds of chat apps. When you've got a large team, one of the things that I've found really important to do is to make sure that you've got channels, fairly specific channels in those chat apps. So that, if somebody's talking about, like there's a fun channel where people can talk about fun things. Well, I can ignore that most of the day, go look at it at the end of the day or something. But then I've got, like an emergency channel. One of our customers is down and we need something now. Boom. I get, I need special notifications, or general help chat channels, or pair programming channels, or one-to-one. But you just got to make sure that you're not getting notifications like every 2 seconds pinging in your ear, because that's just going to distract you. So I think, Slack and or Microsoft Teams are really good ways to communicate. Slack is my personal favorite way to do it. Having used both, I just prefer that, but I know there are people that prefer Teams. But it's just one of those things. If you're not in the room with somebody, you've got to have some kind of way to communicate. And as fast as development and technology moves today, you can't do it all over email. That's just too slow for a lot of things. You have to have some fairly rapid communications a lot of times.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I kind of think of what you tend to do. Like I'm not a huge fan of Slack other than for a synchronous communication session. I haven't become a fan of it for asynchronous communication. Like someone saying, hey, can you check this thing out? I don't know. I mean, I communicate via it, but I would much prefer just to receive an email, because I feel there's I guess it's important for the organization to come to an agreement on if Slack communication is supposed to be considered more of a synchronous or an asynchronous, or like you said, it's specific channels that need to be paid attention to, whereas others can be, you check them every couple of hours or every 3 hours or whatever it is.
Right. And yeah, and it's important that the tool has the ability to turn on and off notifications for certain channels too, so that, I get dinged in the emergency channel every time there's something in there, but I don't get dinged all day long in the fun channel.
Yeah.
So it's,
I mean, this may be slightly off topic, but I've even done some of that for emails. Like if I've actually set up filters in my email for certain email addresses of particular clients and customers. And if I receive an email through there, it actually gets sent to a separate email address that actually pings a verbal and a banner on my phone. So all the other emails I receive in my main email address, that doesn't happen for, but these select few give me a verbal notification. Oh, there's something that's come in from a particular customer, or for example, or from Honey Badger.
yeah. Oh God, the world's exploding. Ding, ding.
Exactly.
So yeah, and I think that's the whole concept of interruption and stuff. You have to be conscious of that with other people too, that you don't do that to other people. And I think that's part of the management part of it, is you need to make sure that the other people on your team can sit and concentrate and do what they need to do and not be constantly interrupted. So you have to make sure you're thinking about that both ways. So, don't send a bunch of extraneous messages. If you need to communicate, because not communicating is worse, but just make sure you got something to say. Or it's an appropriate time to be cutting up and, yes, you definitely should communicate. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Welcome to the show. Have you tried Zulip? No, I haven't tried Zulip, but I will check it out. Thank you. So yeah, in fact, I think one of us is going to check it out right now while the other one's running the stream, which is super cool. But yeah, I think that the interruption.
So it says here, it combines the immediacy of real-time chat with an email threading model. So
that may be the kind of the middle ground between you and me, for the way we like to do things. I am more of I like to be in contact with people pretty regularly. So I spend probably more time than I should in chat. But I also try to be aware of how that affects other people. But yeah, communication is very important. So, especially nowadays where everything is distributed, because there's not a lot of developers working in offices, or not nearly as many as there were 2 years ago. Most of us are remote because, we most of the time our jobs don't necessitate us being in an office. We're talking to computers. So where we do
Except
that
when we need to talk to people. Right.
And that's where you need these tools. But I think we've gotten to a point with the technology that it's not really that big of an issue. I haven't noticed any issues with my current job of having any communication problems, or we can jump on a Zoom call with 5 minutes notice. It's not, it's no more than saying, "Hey, meet me in the conference room." So
it's actually interesting that since COVID, I've actually had more visual meetings with people than I have in the last 5 years. because like I tend to work remote. I have customers all over the country, actually all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually seen more people that I've worked with or served, as customers in the last, 2 years than I have in the last 5 years.
Yeah. I think that's I would agree with that. That's been something I've noticed too, is I'm actually doing a lot more talking and face-to-face communication than when I was in an office. Because when I was in an office, I would typically end up having to close my door because people were constantly walking back and forth and making noise. Not that they were specifically coming after me, but it's just the hallway noise and stuff, and I couldn't, So, yeah, I think you're right.
If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here. Or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.